Hey, welcome once again to Vinyl Fridays, the only vinyl review show where I attempt to film like every episode of it back to back for some reason. Last time I talked about Katy Day's Flood Network, and I kept making comparisons from that to Clarence Clarity's Know Now. So that's what we're going to talk about on this episode, because this was my favorite album of 2015, and I still, give it a lot of listens. It's a very interesting and certainly like nothing else I've ever heard type of album that comes on these cool golden discs that kind of remind me of Beast Wars, the golden discs that they were all fighting over. I don't remember why, what was on them, but this is I guess Anthony Fantano has referred to this as an experimental pop record, and I can't think of any really better terms for it. It sounds like if you took the pop style of like Justin Timberlake and or like all these sort of R&B pop artists and just melted them down and fed them through the dark web. This whole thing is very much themed around like the internet age and the overabundance of information, just being constantly hit on all sides with different things and trying to process all of it and make sense of it all. And that's sort of the theme behind a lot of the lyrics, which, not unlike Katy Day, the lyrics are not always very comprehensible, and they're very pushed in the background, and there's no lyric sheets anywhere online. But in this case, the music is very in your face and upfront and just hitting you with constant stuff. There's always just explosions of sound, weird changes. No two verses are ever exactly alike, No two of the same groove are like there's just so many subtle ways that things get distorted and changed. Songs will just break down in structure right in the middle. I once described this as it sounds like the files that the music are in have all been corrupted. Like if your computer got a virus, like if a Justin Timberlake album got a virus and all the songs were glitched out, or if it's I also have described it as it sounds like someone poured acid over the album and it's just dissolving before your very ears. There's moments where a song will be going along for like 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden, in an instant, it'll clip down to like a slowed down version of the beat that's much more druggy and trippy, and you'll hear like different instruments come in, and it just becomes like it's melting right like before your ears. It's crazy. Or songs will just glitch out and transform into other tracks. Will just cut out in the middle and become the next song. The whole thing loops back in on itself. Like the very first track just kind of cuts in really suddenly, and it's like terrifying when you start the album. But then the last song on it ends after like it builds up in this massive swell and then just cuts out. And if you put the two together, it just plays perfectly one into the next. So I often would start this album from the middle. I would start with the song Those Who Can't Cheat, which is the most hype song. It is one of my favorite songs of all time. I'd start from there and play through and then like layer the track list into my player twice, and then play from there all the way through the album again, because again the last song just loops into the first one. And I think the album actually makes more sense that way, like starting from other points than the beginning. Particularly Those Who Can't Cheat is a great opener, just because it's a really bombastic, fun song that gets you in the mood immediately. And the whole whereas the actual first track, aside from the one that just starts with a burst like that, the first like real song on the album, let me remember the name, which is Will to Believe, is like actually kind of the most off-kilter track on the album. Like it's the one that's the least like poppy and least single-ish. It's got almost like a prog vibe to it. It's just got like kind of I don't know if it's an odd time signature or what, but it reminds me of like a Coheed and Cambria song almost in the way it's structured. I mean, it doesn't sound at all like that band, but the odd timing of like how it switches between verses and choruses kind of reminds me of that, which is not at all indicative of what most of the album sounds like. I mean, not that any one song would be. Like this whole thing is totally chaotic. There's some songs that are just like these chilled out grooves. Let's Shoot Up, for instance, or Blood Barf. Let's Shoot Up is like this sort of trippy, like chopped up electronic track where it's more about like creating these crazy sound collages. It's like not a pop song at all. It's got a great pop hook in it, but it's just like a totally out there experimental electronic song. But then you'll get to like Blood Barf, which is just a straight up pop groove, like a little cool R&B song that you can chill out to until it starts again dissolving before your ears, and like it sounds like radio signals are getting warped into it, and then like it sounds like if you're driving down the road and you're on a station that's in between two stations. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I love it when it happens to me, which is where like you'll be listening to the radio and you just keep hearing it start to pick up a different signal, and it's like going back and forth between two different songs. That's what the end of that song sounds like. And yeah, and then there's songs like Those Who Can't Cheat, which is this really enormous, bombastic track. But all of it, again, communicates this sense of just sensory overload. There's just too much going on. There's too much information out there in the world. You're just inputting all of it at once into your fucking brain and trying to process all of it and just cramming in everything you can. And it's really cool, and I love it because I am a product of that internet age. You know, I've lived on the internet my whole life. I am an overstimulated young person who is the kind of guy who is constantly putting out video content. I mean, if you keep trying to keep up with all my videos, is enough fucking information in itself, but I can easily imagine that probably a lot of people put on my videos in the background while they also go on 4chan and also maybe play some music in the background. And there's some of Clarence Clarity's music videos. If you watch the video for Splitting Hairs, which is not on this album, but it's an off-album track. Like, the video is literally Clarence Clarity with like a bunch of browsers open, and he's like just tabbing between all this different stuff. He's like, you know, he's on uTorrent or the Pirate Bay. He's like downloading Beyonce's new album while simultaneously playing like this like documentary in the background and then a music video, and he's just like got all this stuff going on at his desktop at once. And that's exactly what the music sounds like. And all of his music videos are fucking awesome. They're all just these like batshit insane, like this is what the inside of the internet should look like kind of thing, you know? Like if you tried to imagine a physical version of the information overload of the internet, that's what his music videos look like. I highly recommend watching the video for Those Who Can't Cheat, because not only is the song amazing, but it's got an amazing video as well. That's just like just a boatload of visual information, and it's just such a groovy, fun song with a massive hook on it, but also just moments where it like blows up into like all these glistening, chaotic sounds, like as though if you took a giant mass of gold coins and poured them down and they were all falling and twinkling and stuff. Like, that's kind of what it sounds like at certain moments. Yeah, it's just chaos. There's so much going on in this album, and all of it's interesting. And I mean, it's long. This is an hour-long album. If you like go into this, it's definitely a journey. I had to listen to this album a lot of times before it all made sense to me, like before I could totally process everything that was going on. There's a moment in the final track, aside from the outro that loops into the intro, on the song With No Fear, where that song is like this really quiet, calmed down track compared to the rest of the album. It's very stripped back. It's got a very simple vibe to it. It's kind of like a dinky, smaller song, which is a great breath of air after the rest of the album. But then halfway through, it then turns into just a glitch remix of the entire album. It's like 3 minutes of all the songs like put into a blender and like just like if you were playing like a video of all Clarence Clarity songs playing at once and then DJ turntabling over it. Like, that's what it sounds like. It's just a sound collage of insanity. You keep hearing little leitmotifs from the album, and then it'll go into a million different directions, and it's fucking pure chaos, but it's awesome. I mean, the first time I heard it, I was like, this is unlistenable. But then as I got used to it, I was like, yeah! And that's the kind of thing that exists on this album, you know? There's moments where it's just trying to fuck with you, or just trying to just like be mind altering and make you question if what you're hearing is real. And yet through all that, it still pulls out all these great choruses, these catchy melodies, these like really fun songs that you can throw on in your car. If it comes on shuffle, it sounds fine, you know, like The production on this thing sounds great. There's just so much going on, so many details, so much that like you don't notice the first time that you will the second, or just things in the background that are just hanging there. And personally, I'm a big fan of that kind of highly detailed production. So yeah, this is one of my favorite albums. Every time I listen to it, it's an adventure. I definitely recommend, listening to it all at once and more than like looping it in on itself is the best way to experience it, in my opinion. Like if you can give this thing time to really sink in, then that's probably the best way to listen to it. But highly recommended. And that's it for this episode of Vinyl Fridays. I'll catch you on the next one.